What's up YouTube, Webbers5 here, coming at you with the deck profile you guys have all been asking for. It's my Spyral Nightmares, so let's get into it. Okay, so starting the profile off, I'm playing 3 Spyral Super Agent. Don't really need to explain why I'm using this, because it's a Spyral deck. This is like one of the main cards in it, so maxing out on the Super Agent. And one quick fix, because this card searches pretty much most of your Spyral gears, which is really good for comboing off later with the Nightmares. It's good for going first, pretty much. Don't really need to explain quick fix, you just play it because it's one of the main surges. One drone, because this is the one drone. This is basically your combo starter, because basically you want to go. Basically, one of the ideas of what you want to do is try and find a way to special summon the quick fix first. Use quick fix effect to get drone, normal summon drone, then use drone's effect to restack your opponent's deck. Then you can start going off from there. And then drone's grave effect also comes in handy later to put one of the regular super agents back in hand if it happens to be in there. So you've got additional monsters in your hand later. So it helps with that. Next up, probably one of the main Spyral monsters I'm playing, which is why Spyral Knightmare is working so well. One Spyral Master Plan. This is essentially the monster you want to summon off Double Helix because after you summon it, you're going to grab a Spyral mission card, but I'll go into those later. And yeah, I'll explain a bit more about Master Plan thoroughly a bit later once I get to the Spyral missions that I'm playing, but this is essentially one of the main reasons the deck is working well. Only playing one because you really kind of don't want to draw into it. You ideally only want to summon this off Double Helix. And then the last bits for the Spyral, I'm playing one Spyral Sleeper. I originally wasn't playing this card on the reason I didn't have one. Then a few days ago, I took a look. Then about, a week ago, I actually took a look in my box of Maximum Crisis. Turns out I actually did have a Sleeper, so yeah, now I can play Sleeper. And basically, Sleeper's just so good, so after you've done your main link setup with this deck, you want to banish 3 Spyrals, make Sleeper, then equip Sleeper with the 1 Spyral Gear Last Resort that you play. So, to increase the standard Spyral Sleeper combo of target itself, 2 cards your opponent controls destroy, but because of Last Resort, it's not going to get destroyed. It's another advantage of Master Plan as well, to grab the Resort and then a Spyral card. Usually what I would do with this Master Plan if I've used it for Link Summon is, and I've got a Resort in my deck, I will search the Resort, search one of these 2, then activate the Resort to search the other one. I've got some cool combos which I'll do. There's also some cool combos that work really well with these cards, which I'll go into a bit later, either at the end of the profile, or I might do a separate video depending on how long this is. Okay, so that's it for the Spyral monsters that I'm playing. Then I'm also playing 1 Nightmare Corruptorably. I was playing 3 of this, but in more recent testing, I cut it back down to 1 because essentially 1 is essentially all I really need. I was playing multiple because I was playing multiple Mermaid, but now I've needed to put space in my extra deck for some newer stuff, which I'll go into once we get to the extra deck. But yeah, Corruptorably is really good, so if it's not... This is ideally one of the monsters that you could want to summon after you make your Goblin, so you can normal summon your Iblay, then use its effect to bring back a Link monster that you will essentially use later, but pretty much I'll get into that a bit more. And then its secondary effect, of course, if it's set from field to grave in your possession, you can special summon to your opponent's side of the field, and the controller of this card can't special summon except Link Summon, so that's really good. So that's really good if you're planning to go into an extra Link and lock your opponent out of the extra deck. Okay, next other parts I'm playing in the deck. I'm using a Performage engine to help speed it up, so I'm playing 1 Damage Juggler, 2 Hat Trickers, and 1 Trick Clown. So, the reason I'm playing it at this ratio, because naturally, Damage Juggler is at 1, so I can't play any more than that. This is ideally a card I want to see early in the game, so I can just discard him into my graveyard, then use his effect, banish him to grab one of these guys. If I haven't done my, like, if I've committed to my normal summon already, and I've done Goblin as well, I'd probably want to grab my Hat Tricker. But if I haven't done my normal summon, I'd probably want to go for a Trick Clown. So if I've got the additional normal summon of Goblin, or I've just still generically got my normal summon, I can normal summon Trick Clown, use Trick Clown as link fodder, and then bring him back again so I can use him again. But simultaneously, Trick Clown also makes for a discard and special summon as well. Next I am playing for my World Legacy engine. I'm playing 2 World Legacy World Chalice. This is a really good monster that I can discard early in the game to help set myself up later in the game. Doesn't really do much else besides the search, but for some of the cards that I can search off it, it's pretty useful. Like one of the other World Legacy cards I'm playing is the newest one, World Legacy World Lance. For those who haven't seen what this card can do, I don't really use it for its main effect. I haven't even actually probably read its main effect. So, okay, so its main monster effect is monsters your opponent controls can't attack World Legacy monsters you control except this one, which makes sense because it's a 3k monster. But essentially, I use it for one of its other. I also don't use its last effect, which is if a monster special summon the extra deck, you can special summon a World Legacy token to both player sides of the field. I don't really use it for that. I primarily just use it for the secondary effect, which is during the damage calculation. If your link monster battles an opponent's monster, you can discard World Lance and your opponent's monster loses 3,000 attack points. So yeah, I'm using it as a method to just get over big monsters, which is pretty useful. And that's it for the World Legacy monsters I'm playing. And then just the last monsters I'm playing are just a couple of monsters that have the effect to special summon themselves to give myself more link fodder for the extra link. So that's one Glow Bulb and one Dotscaper. Dotscaper has the effect that if it's sent to the graveyard, you can special summon it. Also, if it's banished, you get to special summon it. You can only use each effect once per duel, but that's fine. You're only really going to need it once. I specifically chose these two because I'm playing 1-for-1 in my deck, so if for any reason if for some reason I've already in the position that I can say make the summon a drone or quick fix, more likely the quick fix first. If I've already got a way to summon quick fix, like through some other cards that I'm playing, which I'll get into, this at least gives me an additional option of monsters that I can go into off 1-for-1. Okay, that's it for the monsters I'm playing in the deck. For spells, I'll start off with the Spyral spells that I'm playing. So I'm playing one resort. Not really much explanation needed. This is the main searcher for spirals. It can be searched off It can be searched off Master Plan if I send it as link material. It's also pretty useful for recycling monsters at the end phase if it's still on the field. Sometimes in link combos, I might have used a specific link monster. I might have used a link monster that I kind of might want to still need, so I can put those back. I can also put back one-off things that I play, like say Trick Clown, so I can use that as link material again later, or Hat Tricker. Lots of good things I can recycle off the results if I get to that point, but ideally, I will only use resort probably once for the combo, or sometimes I'll use it sometimes I'll find a way to use it twice if I'm going first and I use Unicorn's effect to spin a card on the field. Sometimes I'll just spin away the resort, so if I bring back Master Plan later and I haven't done its effect to search the resort, I can send it and then get resort back again. Next up, I'm playing 3 Spyral Gear Big Red. Just a great way to bring a Spyral monster back from the graveyard. So great for bringing back things like quick fix to get an additional search, so deck thinning, or bring back double helix so I can use them as a good link fodder. Playing 3 for the purpose that I discard a lot in the deck, so that at least sets me up for Sleeper later. But yeah, it kind of sucks that you can only activate one of them per turn, but still, I feel maxing out on 3 was the best call. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Spyral Mission Assault. I don't really use it for its... sometimes I use it for its first effect if I've got Sleeper on board, so if I use Sleeper to pop something, then I get its effect to draw a card. but primarily I'm using it for its grave effect that I can banish it to special summon a Spyral from my hand, so yeah, it's a good way to help set up my combos. That's it for the Spyral spells I'm playing. Next up in my World Legacy spells, I'm playing 2 copies of World Legacy Nightmare. So this card makes it so that you don't take damage from battles involving co-link monsters. And essentially that's daily what all nightmares do. So it's pretty useful after you've set that up. And then sometimes I use it for its secondary effect, which lets you move nightmares around if I'm trying to set up for a different thing. But I don't really use that too often because if I move nightmares, that kind of ruins the co-link, which isn't great. But primarily just using it for the don't take damage effect, which is good. And searchable for World Chalice, so that's nice. And then also playing one World Legacy Succession. I like it because it's a searchable monster. It's like a searchable monster reborn to a Zona Link monster points to because I'm playing World Chalice. So I can banish. So ideally I try and use this if I've already set up the extra link and I just want to extend a bit more to put maybe 2 extra link monsters on my field, so I can banish the World Chalice, get the Succession, use one of my Link 2s and another monster to make probably the Trigate, then use the Succession to summon back the Link monster I just used next to the Trigate, then Trigate's got 3, which is pretty good. I'm not playing really... one of the main reasons I'm not playing more of this is because it is quite situational that it has to be to a Zona Link monster points to, and if I've set up the basic 5 extra link, then I'm not going to have a Zona Link monster points to, so it's a bit iffy like that. Next, playing 3 Terraforming, because ideally I want to try and see the result. I want to try and see the result quickly so I can start setting up. It's not a big deal if I don't, and if I've already got the resort, then I've naturally got the World Legacy Nightmare, which I can search for Terraforming as well. So yeah, it's pretty good. I'm honestly surprised Konami hasn't hit this card yet, given how well field spells are doing recently, particularly in Spyral, Invoked. What other stuff is abusing field spells recently? Trickstar, naturally. So yeah, I could anticipate this getting hit soon, but frankly, it's now in that position that they've hit it far too late, so it's not really a big deal. But we'll see in an upcoming ban list. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. The idea of this is to send the Assault to grave so I can banish it to special summon a Spyral. So if I'm going first and I hit into Foolish Burial Goods and a Spyral monster, like Quick Fix or Drone, I can just go Goods, ditch the Assault, banish the Assault, special summon one of them, get their effect. Doesn't commit to my normal summon, and it doesn't commit to my normal summon, which is another great use of it. Got my with the Assault. And then last spells in my lineup are my one-off spells. So Monster Reborn, you link so much, you're gonna have a lot of stuff in your graveyard, and it helps you set up into bigger links later. 1 for 1, as per explained, because that's the instant setup for things like That's the setup for things like Quick Fix, Drone, or one of my other level 1s if for some reason I've drawn into one of those other guys. But ideally, it's just the main way to get Quick Fix out really quickly. That was a terrible pun, I'm sorry guys. 1 Foolish Burial, again, just for quick setup. Quick setup, as well as plenty of monsters in my deck that can abuse their effects the moment they're in the graveyard, so yeah, really great way for deck thinning, straight up. 1 Rotor to try and hit into the Super Agent and do that combo off really quickly. Standard rule. And then the last spell I'm playing, which I've recently just threw back in because of the upcoming Link monsters that we've got in the Battles of Legend, which I was kind of hoping was going to show up today, but didn't, but I'm still doing the deck profile anyway, so. Last spell I'm playing is 1 Soul Charge. That's just a great way to another great way to extend off my extra link. Also can help me extra link on the first turn, which is quite useful. And then finally for the traps, I'm only playing 3 traps, and they're the only 3 traps I need in the deck. 3 Spyral Mission Rescue. This card is essentially the main reason that Spyrals are this is essentially the main reason that spirals are working so well with nightmares. Because on the field, well, that's irrelevant because it's a trap. You're not going to play it on the field. You just want it for its grave. You really just want it for the grave effect, because in the grave you can banish Spyral Mission Rescue to special summon any Spyral monster you want. So essentially what you do, so that's where it combos really well with Master Plan. So after you summon Master Plan through the double helix, you use its effect, and ideally the card you want to search is your Spyral Mission Rescue, and then once you link, then you link off into a nightmare and activate. When you activate the Nightmare's effect, you have to discard a card, which is why you want rescues. Because you want to discard the rescue, get your effect, and then if it's collated, you draw your card. And then you've got rescue in the graveyard that you can banish, special summon back the Master Plan, and use Master Plan to grab another one of them, and then it just helps give you a resource of a card you want to discard, and keeps you having a resource of a monster. Basically, this combo is like the Goki version of using Divine Sword Phoenix Blade. But yeah, essentially, this is the main reason that Spyral Knightmare works so excessively well. Okay, so that's it for the main deck. In terms of the extra deck and what I'm playing, so starting off with one double helix. This is essentially the combo starter for your extra link, as well as setting up. Double helix, just so good for that. I'm only playing one, not specific on the reason that I don't have any others. I do have another one, but since my extra deck's so tight in space because of some other stuff I wanted to use, and frankly, I'm only really ideally going to make my double helix once in my build. So that's why I only play one. Next up, playing one Nightmare Mermaid. I was playing two of this, but since I made the recent decision to cut down Ibli from 3 to 1 to make some space for some extra stuff, I only really need one Mermaid, so that's fine. Mermaid, she's really good, so when she's summoned, you discard a card to special summon the Ibli from your deck, and then if it's collated, when you do, you get to draw a card. So that's really useful, gets me an extra monster on the field, and then his co-linked effect is monsters on the field lose 1,000 unless they're co-linked, so pretty useful, but ideally this is not great if I'm going into the Sleeper combo, because then it drops my Sleeper to 18, but since I'm primarily going to use Sleeper for destroying things, it's not so bad, but high attack points is nice. Next up, I'm playing two copies of Nightmare Goblin. This is one of the really good ones. So Goblin lets you do an additional normal summon after it's linked. Lets you do an additional normal summon to a zone it points to after it's link summoned. So that's really good if you've got Corruptor Ibli in your. That's a really good thing if you've got Corruptor Ibli in your hand, because you can then normal summon Corruptor Ibli to a zone it points to, then use its effect to bring back one of your link monsters. Like probably the one I would bring back is Double Helix if I've used it already, and then the link to Double Helix will set up for, like, say, a Unicorn laser. So, and then it's part of the main Nightmare lock of no because it's the, while co-linked, it's the no targeting. Like, targeting is not a massive big deal, but can come in clutch every now and then. Next Nightmare, two copies of Nightmare Cerberus. So Cerberus, upon link summon, lets you pop a special summon monster in the opponent's main monster zone. Like, it kind of sucks that it says main monster zone as opposed to just a special summon monster, but I understand the purpose. But I understand the point. This is, if I'm doing my link combo, this is essentially one of the ones I want to go into near the end, as opposed to the start. Unless I'm going second and my opponent's already got a special summon monster on the field, then yeah, I might do this. Then yeah, I'd probably do the Cerberus first. For me, it really just depends on, like, my decision to make a Cerberus, or actually I'll explain it more after the next one. So next is two Nightmare Phoenix. So Phoenix is like Cerberus, but it pops a monster. So but instead of popping a monster like Cerberus does, Phoenix pops a spell or trap. So essentially after you do your double helix play, this is essentially one of the two you want to go into. Like, ideally, you'd probably want to go into the Cerberus. Ideally, you probably want to go into the Cerberus to protect them from being destroyed by card effects, as opposed to Night Phoenix's effect of being destroyed in battle. But that's based on various different factors. Because if you've gone first, if you're going first, it's kind of iffy because your opponent's not really going to have any cards on the field, so not an easy way to abuse their effects. So usually if I'm going first, I'll go for the Phoenix first, then go for the Cerberus later, because then I can find a way to try and manipulate my Cerberus's effect so that I can use it. But essentially, these are one of the main two you want to go into after you've done the double helix, but you have to base that depending on various factors, such as whether you go first or second, what your opponent's got on the field, and also if your opponent's done an extra deck on their first turn, which extra monster zone they've gone into, because that's going to affect the play dramatically. And next I'm playing one Nightmare Unicorn. So it's really good. So he's just targets a card and spins it upon summon. So going second, that's really good to get rid of an opponent's problematic card. I've also found a good way to abuse this going first. So if I go into a Unicorn going first, I might spin away my own Spyral Resort, draw a card off of it, and then I can use Spyral Resort again later, which is pretty useful. It's also really useful if I've got the Spyral Resort early and then I haven't done Master Plan's effect to search yet. So if I bring Master Plan back later, after I've spun, if I bring back Master Plan one more time after I do a Unicorn and spin away the Resort, then I can use Master Plan and another monster to link summon into something else, and then I can get her effect to add the Spyral Resort and a Spyral Monster, so that's pretty nice. Last Nightmare we're playing is, of course, Nightmare Griffin. It's really nice, so he lets you set a spell or trap from your graveyard after he's link summoned, but you can't activate it that turn, which kind of sucks, but again, makes sense. And he's pretty... ideally, I try and go into Nightmare Griffin after I've already set up my extra link. Because Griffin's effect is monsters can't activate their effects unless they're linked. So, linked just means if an link arrow is pointing to one of them. Yeah. So it's a really good way to shut your opponent out of using effects as well, which is pretty decent. And then just the generic links I'm playing, one underclock taker. This is a good way to help do this is a nice way for me to just do an extra link if I don't have enough monsters to make, say, Cerberus. So that's just a great way to secure the extra link and lock my opponent out. And then because it's a link 2, all I have to do later is get one more monster on board. Then I can make my Unicorn, which is pretty useful. One Trigate Wizard, because after you set up because it's just great, because you're a link deck, so really easy to take advantage. So really easy to be able to take advantage of his 3 effects, which is I haven't actually read all of his effects. I only mainly focus on the 2 and 3. So. Okay, the 1 effect is just if a card monster, this card battles an opponent's monster, the damage is doubled, which is okay, I guess. But you primarily want the effect of once per turn, target a card in the field, banish it, which is if you have 2 co-links, and then the 3 effect is once per turn, when a card or effect is activated, you can negate the activation and banish it, which is pretty nice. And then link decks, so Firewall Dragon, because Firewall's just absolutely amazing. So many good combos you can do with Firewall with your co-links, particularly if you're setting up. It's a great way to put back your resources. One of the combos I sometimes like to do with Firewall Dragon is if I've special summoned Corruptor Ibli off the Nightmare Mermaid, I might use Firewall Dragon's effect to bounce the Corruptor Ibli back to my hand if I haven't done Goblin's additional normal summon. Then I can do normal summon the additional Ibli and then use Ibli to resurrect another link monster, that's quite nice. And then next to my lineup, this is something I want to test out as additional options of what you can do if you create an extra link, because if you can shut your opponent out of special summoning, that's really good, but if you can shut them out of the extra deck, that's really good. However, in current format, there are some decks that are abusing special summoning without the usage of their extra deck, which is where this monster comes in handy. So the next monster in my lineup that I'm trying out this format is one Topologic Bomber Dragon. Ideally, I want to go into this after I've set up my board of the Cerberus, Phoenix, and Goblin, and put this in one of my extra monster zones, co-linked to one of them. So then with Bomber on board, if anything is summoned to a zone a link monster points to, Bomber blows up everything in the main monster zone. It's not once per turn, and it's a mandatory. It's not once per turn, and it's a mandatory effect. And because Bomber has 3 links pointing down, and in a generic extra link, I will have it going across there. That leaves that zone open, so if I special summon something, I can nuke my opponent's board and keep my monster safe because of Cerberus. And then his other effect comes in quite handy as well, which is if it battles a monster, you can blast that monster's attack points as damage to your opponent, which is quite nice. And then the last link monster I'm playing, guys, I did post in one of my previous videos if anyone could guess the last link monster I wanted to play in this deck. That one, for those of you who guessed Topologic Gumbler Dragon, you are absolutely right. That is the monster I want to play. Unfortunately, it did not show up yet today, so until such time, I'm just playing Deco Talker, which I don't really use at all. That's just space filler. The main thing I want to use is Gumbler. So for those who haven't seen what Topologic Gumbler does, naturally, it's a Topologic monster, so it's got an effect that activates if it's monster summoned to a zone it points to. Topologic Gumbler has the effect that if a monster is summoned to a zone it points to, you discard 1 to 2 random cards, then your opponent discards the same number of cards. Unfortunately, your opponent's cards aren't random. But then Gumbler has unlike the other one, so like the other Topologics, that is a mandatory trigger. Unfortunately, because it is hand destruction, that effect is limited to once per turn, which isn't so bad, but there is other ways you can disrupt your opponent's hand with Topologic Gumbler. So Topologic Gumbler has a specific effect if it's extra linked. For those who aren't familiar with extra link, that's when you've got link arrows that point from one zone that co-link all the way to the other zone, you can then steal it. So if Topologic Gumbler is in that position of being extra linked, once per turn you can force your opponent to discard up to two cards. Oh no, it's not up to 2 cards, it's 2 cards or their entire hand if they've got less than 2. And then if they have no cards in their hand as a result, they take 3,000 points of damage. So ideally, if you were doing it as per an extra link combo, one thing you could do is you could do Gumbler first and then end with like the Unicorn or Topologic Bomber, and then you can get Gumbler's effect because the Topologics don't say if it's monster summoned to a zone it points to, it's just if it's summoned to a zone a link monster points to. So you could set up one of them, extra link into the other, and then the other one's effect will trigger, which is really useful, which is pretty useful. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to trying that out. It should be really fun. Okay guys, so that's the deck profile. I hope you really enjoyed it. Again, I apologize that my Topologic Gumbler didn't show up today, so I can't properly showcase that, but I'll do it. But I'll let you guys know when it comes through. If you like the video, leave a comment in the description, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I shall also be leaving a post in the description that leads to a video of just some basic combos of what you can do with this deck. So check that out if you guys want to see some of the cool stuff you can do with this deck. And hopefully see you soon. Take it. Have fun, guys.